welcome back to my channel. My name's Rachel and this is Stitched Up. So today's vlog, we're going to be talking crotch curves. So you know that I've been on this journey of discovery around trying to make trousers that fit me perfectly. I think that's the utopia, isn't it, for lots of us when we sew. We want to make trousers that fit us around our crotch curve just like a glove. And I'm on that journey too. I've been sewing a long time now, well, 12 years or so, and it's been my nemesis, I'll be honest. But I've done lots and lots of research and I am no expert. So please bear in mind that this vlog is a journey of self-discovery for me as well as you, hopefully. And I'm going to be showing you how I've used the foil method to determine my personal crotch curve shape. So we are going to be getting up close and personal with our crotches, ladies. And yes, we are going to be applying what I learn to a pattern and seeing what I end up with. So the pattern that I'm going to be working with is the Bob Pants by Style Arc. I love this pattern. And the reason I've chosen this pattern is A, because I want to make another pair, but also I know that when I made them before, I didn't get the fit right. And I'm not just talking about sort of the waist and hips, I'm talking about the crotch. I ended up lowering the crotch a lot and they ended up super low, loads of excess fabric in the front. And that seems to be a bit of a running theme with some of the patterns that I've been making recently. For trousers, I've noticed that I'm getting a lot of excess fabric in the front. So it's something that I really wanted to look at and tackle. So I've used the foil method. A few people have asked me how you do that and how it looks. So I thought I'd put together a vlog for you so you can see how I've used foil to get my personal crotch curve and then how I've used that to adapt the Bob's Pants pattern. So hopefully I will come out with a much better fit. So please bear in mind, I'm not an expert. I'm just talking you through my process. Hopefully it might, teach you something, I guess, and or at least give you the sort of inspiration to go and have a go yourself and see if you can get a better fit on your own pants. So anyway, that's where we're at. I'm going to leave it there and hope you enjoy the rest of the vlog and I'll see you soon. Right then, so I've just got back from my run and I'm going to talk you through how I traced off my crotch curve using foil so that you can use this method yourself. It's not an exact science. I am not an industry trained pattern drafter or anything like that by any stretch of the imagination, but this is just something I've learned myself and it seems to work. So I think for me, it's the best method I found that's easy, that's using things that you've got at home without having to buy special equipment, that you can use to just adjust patterns to fit you better if you have, not a standard crotch curve. And let's face it, who does? So I'm in my gym gear because, as I say, I've just come back from a run. And what I would recommend is you wear something that fits you on your natural waist, because you need to measure from your natural waist front to back, regardless of the type of trousers that you want to make, whether you want to make lower rise trousers or not. You need your full crotch curve, which goes from waist at the front to waist at the back. So ideally, leggings are a great thing to wear. I mean, they do say you can use string and tie that around your natural waist. Where you bend is where your natural waist is. But I find, actually, if you put a pair of leggings on that come up to your natural waist, like mine do here, this gives you a really good marking point, front and back. They need to fit really tight as well. So they need to actually fit you right through your crotch curve. So there needs to be no sort of bagginess at the crotch or gape or anything like that. If you don't have leggings, just wear a good, well-fitting pair of underwear that come right up to your waist. If you don't have underwear that comes up to your waist, then yes, you will need to use string or a piece of elastic just to use as a marking point. So I'm wearing my gym leggings. Excuse the fact that I'm a bit sweaty. As I say, I've just got back from a run. It's the perfect time to do it. So the next thing that you are going to need is foil, and I would recommend that you use the longer sort of turkey length foil, just because it scrunches up and is a little bit more sort of sturdy than the narrow, because you can get foil in the UK particularly, you can get foil that's sort of this length, but at Christmas we get the really long turkey foil, and I just think that's much better. So you're going to need some foil. The other thing you're going to need are some clips as well, or if you haven't got clips you can use elastic bands, but which you would have to put around the foil first. I just find clips are easier. So I've got a mixture of clips actually. I've got these long ones which are really good for this, but if you haven't got those and you've just got small ones, you know, just your standard little tiny quilting clips, they will absolutely do fine. What we need to do then is you need to tear off a piece of foil that you estimate is going to stretch, well not stretch, but fit you from your centre front all the way through your crotch up to your centre back. So I anticipate that is probably going to be long enough for me. And then all you need to do is just tear it off. And then we're going to scrunch it together along the length of the piece that you've just torn off. So this is why I said get the extra wide, because you've got more foil to scrunch in. So we're going to scrunch it in to a nice sort of tube like this. It doesn't have to be exact, but it just needs to be quite sort of scrunched up and firm. If you haven't got the wide foil, just use the smaller foil and just use it, you know, get 2 pieces of it so that you can scrunch it up. So you end up with something like that. So what you do next is you put your foil piece, this is the most glamorous thing I've ever done, I think. Put your foil piece between your legs and up to your centre front and your centre back, like I've done there. And it needs to be snug against your body, so you should be able to feel it, okay? And then what you need to do is you need to just fold over the top of the foil so it hits at your centre front at the waist. And then we're going to do the same at the back. So mine is just a little bit high, but I've got my waistband of my leggings as a guide where I can just fold that over, and I think probably that's more or less about right. I mean, if you know, it's probably easy if you've got somebody to help you with this, but I haven't. So, and then yeah, just gently sort of mold the foil to your crotch the best you can. Remember, as I said, this is not an exact science. This is just to get the shape basically and the length. Now, what you need to do next is take one of your clips and you need to have a little feel around where your front crotch seam is. So when it comes to wearing leggings, you do get some leggings that are completely seamless. They're probably not the best ones to wear because you need to know where the seam is between the front and the back, if that makes sense. So I would recommend wearing seamed leggings. I should have told you that at the start, but apologies for that. I do have a seam on the crotch of this particular pair of leggings. So what you need to do is find where that seam is, and your little clip, you clip it to the foil, not yourself. Be very careful with this bit, but clip it to the foil just where that seam lies between the front and the back at the crotch, because that's going to denote where your front crotch curve ends and the back crotch curve starts, if that makes sense. So holding your foil at the centre front and the centre back, once you've got that in place there, that little pin, then basically all you do is very gently step out of the foil and lift it up. And then this is what you've got. You should end up with something like this. Now yours might look very, very different to mine because we are all different shapes. Your shape might look really strange. I mean, mine looks really curvy, to be fair, but I am very curvy. But you can see where I've put the pin. That is where my front crotch. So here is my front crotch and this is my back crotch. Now again, this is not exact. The inside of this foil tube, foil circle, semicircle, whatever you like, is obviously the bit that's hitting my body. So what we need to do now is place this on some paper and trace the inner curve out. So we'll come to that bit next. So this is what I've previously traced when I did this the first time round. So you can see how I've ended up with this sort of weird horseshoe style shape, I guess. And I've just gone over it in a Sharpie just so that you can see it against my cutting mat. But I've got the front curve here and I've just denoted where the clip was. So, and I've marked it front, and then this is the back bit here. So I've taken my foil that I've just removed today, so this is it here, and I'm just going to lay it on just to show you. So you can do this, you know, 2 or 3 times just to compare the different shapes you get each time, because I think that will help you just refine it. But you can see that, you know, the one that I did a few days ago before I made my second pair of winnies, and then the one that I've just done now are actually very similar. So it's quite, as I say, it's not an exact method because, you know, foil does move about, but it's very similar, even to the point where I've put my little clip. So all you need to do then is lay your foil on your paper, as I've done, and then just with a pencil, or you can use a Sharpie, just trace the inner curve onto your paper and then mark where the clip is between the front and the back. And then obviously you can get rid of your foil at that point, or you can use it again just to check again and keep checking it just to refine it slightly and make sure that you're happy with what you've got. And then what we do now is, now we've got that lovely shape, we can make some measurements if you want to do that and write them down, so you've got those to hand for when you're checking future crotch depths of different patterns that you want to make. So all I would do is lay a tape measure, a flexible tape measure along the front from the top of the waist, which is obviously my centre front waist is there, and then my centre back waist is there. And yes, measure from the front waist to the crotch, the front crotch, and then from the front crotch along the back to the back waist. So I've got the length of both, and then I could mark those down. And then the other thing that we can do is, obviously, when we come to make a pair of patterns, when we come to make a new pattern that are trousers, I'm going to make a pair of bob pants. I've reprinted the pattern because I can't find my pattern, so I've reprinted it, and we're going to make a pair of bob pants. And I am going to look at the crotch curve of the bob pants and just compare it with this one and see if I need to just adapt it slightly to make sure that it's going to fit me better. Not completely accurately, but better. That's what we're aiming for. Right then, so I've got the pattern printed, stuck together, cut out. So I'm going to show you now how we can apply our traced off crotch curve that we've just done to the pants patterns. So I'm just going to zoom you out just a little bit so it's easier. So the first thing you need to do when you're looking at your pattern that you want to be making is looking at the design. So obviously this is the bob pants. They're not, I mean, it's not a dropped crotch as such, but it is quite long if you look at this because of the design. So, you know, you don't want to overfit these and have it right up next to your crotch, if that makes sense. So there is going to be a lot more depth to this than will be on my crotch curve itself, if that makes sense. They are going to be longer. And you also need to look at your seam allowance, because what we need to do first is we need to overlap these to front to back by the seam allowance before we check our crotch curve against them. So the seam allowance on this pattern is 1 centimetre, which tends to be standard for all of Style Arcs patterns. I have cut the pattern out from the size 12 to 14, which correlates to my size generally. I mean, my waist fits into the 10, but again, these are a pull-on pant and I don't want to have the problem of trying to get them over my hips. So I'm going with the 12, and then I'll just put a bit of extra elastic in. So I'm just marking off the seam allowance, and I'm going to do it on the back on this one. So we've got 1 centimetre seam allowance, and then actually I'm probably better off doing it on the back on the front so that everything is the right way around. Right, so we'll do 1 centimetre there and 1 centimetre there. Okay, and then yeah, we're just going to temporarily stick these together, and I just use a little bit of Scotch tape for this because it's removable without shredding my pattern. And You don't need to worry about what the legs are doing. Basically, all we need to do with this is just overlap the seam allowance at the inseam here and just temporarily stick it together. So we've got now the front here and the back. I'm just going to bob that there. Okay, so this is our crotch curve as is drafted on the bob pants. And what I want to do now is bring across my pattern there. So you can see, looking through, how really different this pattern is. The waistband piece, pattern piece is here. If I fold this in half and add it on to where the seam would be, which would be roughly about there, then I can apply my centre front waist to where the top of the waistband is going to hit, because that's where the bob pants waist, finished waist, is going to hit me. And you can see just how low this crotch is. But this now helps me to sort of identify what I need to do in relation to altering the bob pants to fit me better. So before we start attacking the pattern, we need to measure the distance of our front and back crotch curve. So, and we're just going to be working on the front one for now. So starting at the waist seam here, I'm just going to move my tape measure gently around that curve, which comes to 29 centimetres. So I know that my waist to inseam is 29 centimetres. So we've got our front pattern piece here, and we now need to just have a look and see what length this is and make the adjustment that we need so that I know that this is going to fit me. So I've just got my waistband piece again, and I'm just going to stick this back in place where it would need to be. I know that this stitching line here is 1 centimetre down from the top, so that is where I'm going to just place my waistband. So this now is going to be the full finished front curve of the front pant piece. So I need to measure this, which comes to 36 centimetres. So I've got 7 centimetres difference between this length here and the length of my actual body. So I'm going to take off a little bit of that, and I need to think about how much I'm going to take off, because I don't want to keep the design of this pant, remember, I don't want it completely fitted to my body. So you've got to think about that when you're looking at the pattern that you're making, whether it is actually a super fitted design or whether it's something that's just a little bit more loose and casual. The bob pant is a very loose and casual pant pattern, so I need to really think about that. So what I'm going to do is I am going to cut through to the side seam. I'm probably going to cut it around here. I'm going to measure down from where I've cut around 3 centimetres and bring the top part down to meet that. So if we just add on, let's just put the waistband back in place. So now if we remeasure remembering that we've got a centimetre for the seam allowance here, front and back, we are going to end up with a new distance at the front crotch of just up to the seam allowance, 33. So we have gone from 36 to 33. So we've removed that 3 centimetres there, and we've just shortened that front rise. So I'm going to have 4 centimetres of ease in the front rise, which is going to be probably about right for me in this style of pant. I think in something that was a bit more fitted, then and not as casual, you would want probably less than that. But I think for me, that's probably going to work. That's what I'm going to go with, and we'll just see how these end up. It's something that, you know, this is a learning curve, isn't it? And it's something that I can always tweak again in the future, but we'll go with that for now and see what that looks like in the finished trousers. So we're now going to turn our attention to the back pattern piece, and to be honest, I'm not too worried about this piece. I know that obviously I've got such an exaggerated curve because I've got a curvy shape and a big bum, but because of the style of these pants, I don't need to worry too much about altering the back pattern piece. It's more about the front, because there's a lot of extra volume in the bob pants anyway. If this again was a fitted pant, it would be a completely different scenario. But essentially, all I'm going to do is I want to just make sure that I have enough length from the waistband at the back, centre back, all the way to where the inseam meets, and that I've got the same room here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just get my tape measure, and I'm just going to measure my own rear crotch curve. I'm going to do this in centimetres because I've been working in centimetres. So mine is 42 centimetres. So I'll just make a note of that, and then we can move that out of the way. And then I have just stuck on where the seams meet and where the waistband is, and I just need to measure the length of this, because I need this to be 42 centimetres to make sure it meets at my centre back. And it is, it's 42 and a half. So this length here is the same length as this, even though this is more of an exaggerated curve. So I know that the length of the centre back on the back of the bob pants, even though the shape is different, is going to meet at my centre back at the top. There is enough room here to get around the curve of my butt, if that makes sense. So I think this is going to be fine. Yeah, I think it's going to be all right. I don't think I need to alter anything on this back pattern piece. So I'm going to leave the back pattern piece alone. I've made the front alteration just to take some length out of the front rise. And then I think what we can do is go choose some fabric and get cutting. Before we do that, one other thing I do need to do, which is nothing to do with the rise, is just add some length to these trousers. So I think style arc giraffe to around 5'6", so I am going to need to add on some length to make these just a little bit longer. So I think there is a short and lengthen line here, so I'm going to cut through that and add in probably a couple of inches just to give me some extra length in the legs, and then yes, we can get cutting. Right, they're almost done. They just need hemming, but I thought I'd do a quick try on and show you. So I love them. The fit feels amazing. I love the adjustment that I made at the front. So if you remember, I took a good, was it 2 centimetres, 3 centimetres out of the front rise. And now you can see how flat that is sitting at the front crotch, and I have probably a good, I'm just thinking, inch, half inch, no, probably about half an inch between where my physical crotch is and the crotch of the pants, which is enough for me. So when I bend my legs, I haven't got loads of excess fabric there now. If we look at the side profile, it's sitting nicely at my waist, my centre back, and the same at that side. And then the bum, I've got enough room in the bum. I mean, I do have a curvy bum, as we've already discussed on numerous occasions, but I have enough depth at the rear crotch rise to get around that and still hit me on my natural waist. So yeah, I love the fit of these. I feel it's pretty much bang on, if I'm honest, and yeah, they feel so comfortable. They do need hemming. I've got them on with stripy socks, which, I mean, I wouldn't wear them with this outfit, obviously. I've got changed. I put a hoodie on because I'm feeling rather cold at the minute, but these are just gorgeous. I'm so glad I've made another pair and just reprinted the pattern, because I think out of these and the Winnies, this is probably feels more me. The Winnies are, I mean, the Winnies are not as exaggerated as the Bobs. That's the difference. These are much more exaggerated balloon shape, and it just feels much more boho and very much more my style. But if I, you know, as I'm sort of moving forward now, you can see that the fitting across the front here is just really nice and flat. So taking out that extra depth, you know, and even sort of bending my legs around the back, I don't feel that they're cutting into me or anything. I feel that that depth that I've left is pretty much bang on where I want it to be. So yeah, really happy with them. I hope that has been useful. I mean, you know, I'm no expert, and this is very much a journey of discovery for me as well, in how to alter patterns now I've got my crotch curve. But I hope that you've been able to see that, you know, using a few bits and pieces that you've probably got at home, you can just have a little play with your own crotch curve and figure out what that looks like and make those a few adjustments to your pants patterns and then try them out. So yeah, I'm definitely going to use some of my gorgeous fabric now to make another pair of Bobs, because I forgot just how much I love this pattern. But I think visiting where, well, just reflecting, I guess, on the Bobs that I made first time around a few years ago and how these fit now. I have got a copy of my own unique crotch curve. I can feel the difference. The difference in how these fit is just, they feel like they were made for me, and that's exactly what they are. So anyway, hope you've enjoyed that, and I'll catch up with you soon. Take care. Bye.